Hello, I'm Miskatu Mesk. This is going to be a cast of the, this is my first recording, but there's two games. So this is the second game, but this is my first recording because currently I do not have the replay for the first game. This is relevant because the first game was influential for some of the things that people do in this game. I'll talk briefly about that. The time is February 27th, 3:30 a.m. This was played yesterday evening, so that would have been Saturday the 26th. So, I'm a little tired right now, but I got some coffee. This is going to be a fairly lengthy cast. We're going to sit down, and hopefully we don't have any audio issues because the new front end has given me some corruption. Yeah, so let's go through the teams then. So we got on the right side, we've got myself, we've got Higgs, we've got Q, and we've got Ricky Honejasi. The first time he managed to wrangle the French into playing as East Asia. On the west side, we have Zilla, Emu, High Zealot, and Stick of Punag. So, the first game. Okay, so the first game was very similar teams, but it was a 5 versus 4 on the west side. Steak was there, and it was the same composition of players. Otherwise, on our side, we had Thigh Loli instead. Now, in that game, we absolutely decimated them. It was it was a 5 versus 4, but we just destroyed them. And there's quite a few reasons why we just destroyed them. They put the blame on Carrion Swarm. I took Carrion Swarm, and there's a lot of nuances to that, and I don't really want to have to repeat myself because I'm going to go through all that whenever Ricky sends me that replay and I go through that video, we'll go through all those nuances. But the net of it is effectively that I was way ahead of them on lumber, on gold, on levels. I've maxed out Carrion Swarm kind of later into the game, but early on, I got it up to like level 7, level 8 very, very, very quickly, and then I took mass teleport practically as soon as it was available. So I was extremely far ahead. And that was a game in which, since it was 5 versus 4, I tried to play a little seriously. I don't have the eye ulcer anymore. A little bit more in my game, I was more awake, so I tried to take that game a little more seriously. Now, HKS told me that they were saying it was all Carrion Swarm and Carrion Swarm was overpowered and stuff like that. So we came into this game afterwards because the first one was quite short. And I decided I was going to go Caster, of course, and I was going to not take Carrion Swarm as my first ability. I hadn't tried Impale yet. I said, okay, we'll try Impale. So we'll talk about Impale in this cast. Now, with that first game, again, there's a lot of reasons why I got really far ahead. That normally doesn't happen in this game, the kind of things that happen in that game. So there was a lot of contributing factors. In this game, things will be a little different. So what we're going to see is on the west side, because of the experiences of that game, they probably assume I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take Carrion Swarm and then probably, otherwise take nukes and stuff like that. So in the first game, their team had basically no way to punish me at all. In this game, they are all going to go some kind of CC or burst damage as opposed to Zilla, who will basically do the same thing he did in the first game, which is like auras on this guy, who is quite fast in movement and goes sort of tanky. So in the first game, Zilla did that, and it was actually quite strong against me, but he was so far behind because I was so far ahead. Like, he wasn't really behind. It was more like the whole team, all the players were super far behind me. So it didn't really matter as much, but he was still like becoming quite a nuisance for me just because the way magic resist works. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about balance in this. I'll talk about Carrion Swarm. We'll try to objectively look at Carrion Swarm and, because I've thought about this sort of thing for a while. Like, is Carrion Swarm overpowered? I think in the context of this map, yes, it is. How much? Not by much. But there's factors why. It's not just like, oh, Carrion Swarm is really strong and does a lot of damage. In the specific cases we're talking about, where typically it's being used to to burst players down, it's because they don't have magic resist, and they're squishy. Now, we've come into this map with the hope of, opening up, with HKS making changes, opening up more choices in the map and stuff like that. And I honestly can't even remember what replays I've cast at this point. I have no idea. But we have seen some physical damage in these games. And Haizel's gone physical damage, I've gone physical damage. HKS usually builds some kind of tanky aura thing. Sometimes Ricky goes physical, whatever. We've seen various attempts on it and stuff like that. Obviously, all that stuff's very new. And it's at the stage where I'm not sure, if I was to recommend some kind of balance changes. I'm not at the stage right now where I would know precisely what to recommend, because there's a couple of other changes I wanted to make to the map. And HKS wanted to make to the map before we really start to think about, okay, what kind of small adjustments we can make. So one of the major changes that we come into this version with, that I'll probably talk about again in that first video, is creep respawns are supposed to be in, but they're kind of fucky. So let's see if I can find HKS's post. HKS says he's come to the conclusion that Warcraft 3 really hates anything that isn't a data variable type being in an array. Like anything that's a handle will just break. So he was trying to handle storing information for dealing with the camp respawns and stuff like that using arrays. And Warcraft 3 is using that 1997 engine from Blizzard North that they kind of tooled up, and then they've just used for every game in the last 20 years, except for those that they use Unity for. And this engine's a piece of shit. And Warcraft 3 in particular is a heaping piece of shit. And then you had the Malaysian group come in and make changes to it. Some of which I've heard are good changes, but considering you can be DC'd off the internet during playing the campaign, it'll kick you out of the campaign, we can all pretty much agree that Refunded is just a blithering disaster in nearly every other way. So there's still a lot of just internal fuckery, and he's had a lot of issues with getting certain things to behave. Just the process of getting the creep camp respawning set up was a pain in the ass. Well, it had to be tested in some shape or fashion. These are the games that are testing it. He made changes between that version and this version, and I still think it was quite fucky because he didn't realize that arrays are very limited in Warcraft 3. So the creep camp respawning is not really quite in. Creeps also scale up now. When you clear the camps, they will get upgrades. Those upgrades will increase their health and damage and stuff like that a little bit. So kind of a little bit like League of Legends. In which the camps, and I guess Dota as well, you get new minions or whatever that spawn over time, just so that, you're not walking in there like level 20 and you're just instantly killing stuff and suddenly you got like 500 gold or something, and possibly a drop off of the Hydras too. So I would like for those to be fairly reasonably tough even later on in the game, but we're at the stage where it's like, if we're going to talk about physical versus casters, I talked about this in the last videos, we need sources of income that are easier to get early on than trying to last hit in a game that is as clunky as Warcraft 3, because it's very, very clunky, and this map is particularly harsh for last hitting on, because you'll notice, like in League of Legends, minion health is a lot lower than in this, compared to how much damage the heroes do to them. Plus, a lot of physical classes have some kind of assist for helping last hit minions. At least back when I played a League a couple years ago, there was, you can get early lifesteal, early base damage, stuff like that. There's ways you can kit yourself out to make your last hitting a little bit easier if you really want to, or if your hero has low base damage. Nothing like that exists in this. In fact, getting items in this takes a really, really long time, even low-level items. And of course, we talked about gold competition between items and leveling creeps. So, but we're not going to see, we don't really see too much in the way of competing physical versus caster in this. So when I'm going to talk about balancing this and some of my observations thus far, especially, adopting that carrion swarm build quite often in these games, is we're going to talk most about spells versus spells in this, because we're not really at a position where I can say, well, you should nerf it because physicals have a hard time. Well, physicals in this map generally have a hard time early on anyways. But I've also seen cases in these matchups where they do okay, and then they're, if they have some success, they can be quite relevant later on. And I've been able to play it to some extent, even when behind, I've done okay. So, and again, the player skills and the builds and stuff like that all factor in. But we can kind of look at the performance of some of these spells versus their counterparts. So when I came into this game, I thought, okay, I'll try something other than Carrion Swarm. I know someone on the enemy team is going to take Carrion Swarm because if they view it's overpowered, they're going to try to use it against me. And really the big thing about Carrion Swarm, especially early on, is it's not amazingly good at killing players, unless you're as far as ahead of everybody else as I was, where you have leveled it up. But it tends to be good at pushing the waves and getting creep score. So we talked a lot about creep score in a lot of these games. The creep score in all these games is abysmally low. It's terrible. It is really bad. Everybody scores terribly in this. Until you get to the point where you've got AoE clearing waves. And Carrion Swarm is great for that because it's the broadest AoE and it does really great damage. When it comes to versus players, the second that people start picking up the magic resist items, Carrion Swarm tapers off very fast. What then happens is you get into chaining CC. So one of the interactions I really don't like about this map and really any of these maps and just the Dota clone genre in general, including Dota in itself, is the obsession with CC being your solution. So in League of Legends, and I don't know, I guess Dota to an extent, of course, all the matches with Dota I watched, you ended up very often with cases with people just like 1v5ing because they just got so far ahead. People got stuck in this state where they didn't have the gold to keep up, and then they would lose gold from dying, and then the one person would just hit a certain point in their build where they become, you know, like an optimal power. They hit that optimal power spike and that one's in. And League can definitely be like that too. It was slightly less common, but there were still cases where you get that Riven or that LeBlanc or, you know, someone who had the capability to just instantly kill people while being maneuverable enough to avoid most CC. They could just insta-give people. But otherwise, you had team fights where it was basically like who lands CC at the right time. In these maps, what tends to happen is you get chain CC to death. We're going to see that a lot in this because it feels like just about every single player on the enemy team is going to take CC, and I am also going to take two forms of CC in this map. CC is a expression of power that you cannot really put down in those little Excel sheets that they tell you about in college. They tell you about the game design, make everything points of 3, make everything fucking purple and green, and budget everything out on numbers in an Excel sheet. That's why all these games have things like exponential growth, all the gacha systems, everything like that all seems to be funneled into this sort of, you know, there's a word for it, but it's like, you know, you could almost view it as like actions per minute, almost like APM, but it's more like content per minute, you know, consumption per minute, in the sense that only so many things can happen at once, and then numbers get distributed in that. So you could think of like health and damage. Well, if something does a lot of damage, it should have low health. You know, there's a basic example. Crowd control really takes those kinds of formulas and just pisses all over them very aggressively. Because crowd control takes away control from the player, and it eliminates a lot of those numbers, except for when certain actions are automated. This is one of the reasons why you see the RTS genre take such a nosedive like 20 years ago, and why we just haven't had a good RTS released in decades. It's because people who aren't gamers started trying to get into gaming because it started becoming popular and a place that you could get money in, you could get recognition in. And anything that really required people to improve and really maximize, that had a skill ceiling that was beyond the entry-level physical ability to complete, they couldn't handle that. It was too much for them. They called it a click fest. They just couldn't do it. And you started seeing a lot of automation come up instead. You know, automated workers, you know, auto mining, multi-building select, you know, unit selection, those arguments have been done to death. But ultimately, the main reason why we see a lot of automation come up and why the RTS genre got shrunk down, especially for like Warcraft 3, is it's not just because their engines are absolute shit and they had to make it 3D because it's a fad and it performs terribly if you have a lot of units. It's also because the people who build the game are bad at playing games. They're bad at playing large scale. They can't handle it. They got to drop that skill ceiling so they can still feel like they're gamers. And crowd control is kind of the same way, where you could be 300 APM, you could be 100 APM, you could be 20 APM, none of it matters if you can't do anything. It eliminates your ability to interact, to engage. Therefore, if you do 50 million damage, but you're stunned by a unit that does 2 damage, all that power budget disappears. So we talk about the concept of power budget. Now, when we look at power budget, we could look at all the starting stats for heroes. And one of the things that kind of gets me about at least looking at Horde side is if I want to make a ranged physical damage hero, who am I going to pick out of our hero selection for this? Really, the only character is going to be Sylvanas, but her power budget is split with agility and strength, at least for the base stats. We don't have heroes for agility, at least on the Horde side, like Kel'Thuzad, who has 25 intellect, 15 agility, 15 strength. If you want to go pure attack speed, damage, physical damage, you would like to see 25 agility, 15 strength. Now, in this kind of a map with casters and stuff like that, having the strength actually tends to be very nice. I like to have strength because it means more health and health regeneration, and you do want to be beefy. But if you wanted to go straight damage, if you wanted to take that risk, if you wanted to scale more with agility, you'd like to have a hero that is biased to agility. We don't have that here. Now, if I look on the Alliance sides, we get some very strange power budget management. We have Illidan, who has more base strength than he does agility. Now, he is melee. So I'm not going to say it's necessarily, oh, go change Illidan. You know, it's more like maybe we want to have one that is more, maybe we should change one of the Illidans, right? So that one's biased to agility, and one can be the way he is just in stat distribution. But the other Sylvanas here is also 20/20, right? And there's just not really that much in the way of physical ranged in general. And they all have 20 strength, 20 agility for their base stats. Their stat growth might be different. But just in terms of, our power budget for damage, for dealing damage, is taking a hit out of a power budget that's partially going into strength, which is a defensive attribute in this specific case because they're not getting damage from strength. So what this means is that, if we want to talk about power budgets, we kind of need to go in that realm of at least, conceptually thinking, the performance of something in terms of numbers. But again, we've approached the subject many times in these casts for TGS. There's not much point in getting so intricate with the balance in this. It's more like, what is the experience that we're seeing? So this will be a good game for that because we're going to have High Zealot taking Carrion Swarm, and I will take it later on in the game. But I'm taking Chain Lightning first. So we're going to see how well he performs with Carrion Swarm, and if the map is grossly imbalanced in the West side's favor as a result of them taking much more direct damage, Carrion Swarm, stuff like that, which they, so at least some people believe to be just straight up ridiculously overpowered, versus like Chain Lightning, which is decent. And then Ricky, who's French, and Q, who's going to take Thunderclap, actually. He's going to go a very strange build. And HKS, I don't even honestly know what he does besides pee on people. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So that's the background for this game. We're looking at the performance of Carrion Swarm. We're going to see how well High Zealot does with it. We're going to see how well Impale and Chain Lightning work. So, yes, it did just yank my camera. Yes, the map does that. No, we can't do anything about it in the replay. HKS should probably remove it from the game. So, obviously, there's like a lot of changes. So here I am contemplating, am I going to go Carrion Swarm again? And I'm going to think, nah. I was actually looking. I might have been AFK. No, there I am. I might have been looking through the things, figuring out what I'm going to do. And when we look at power budgets and stuff like that, what I want to kind of look at personally is the early game mana cost for Carrion Swarm. Because I think it might be lower than Chain Lightning, and it really shouldn't be. So Q's going to go Thunderclap and I think Frost Armor. And HKS is going to go Healing Spray And Chain Death Coil. Ricky is also going to take Chain Death Coil and I think Chain Holy Light. And then Mass Teleport. Whereas High Zealot will go Carrion Swarm into Brilliance Aura. I will also take Brilliance Aura, I believe, but he will level his more aggressively than I do. Stake will take honestly, I have no idea, but they're bullying Ricky a lot here. So another difference is that High Zealot's gone an Agility Hero because he's actually going to be multi-classing his abilities a little bit. He's going to go a little bit of physical damage as well. Now, he has already reached maximum mana again. So mana regeneration, this map's kind of fucked. It's kind of weird. To me, it seemed like his mana regeneration was quite high, but it's really just... He's going to level a Brilliance Aura a little aggressively. So I'm in a 1v2 lane down here, and Ricky is in a 1v2 lane up top. Bill has Shadow Strike, and the passive on Zilla's character is kind of like a bash, but it can occur. It occurs at the start of the swing, so you can actually cancel it and spam it early on. In particular, that makes it quite dangerous. So Ricky was already first out of lane, although both High Zealot and Stake are missing some health. I'm playing Archimon, who I've never played before, and he has a Devour Magic passive that it says it can only devour buffs, and it really is specific about that. A lot of magic dispelling will get rid of any buffs, including debuffs. It only works on enemy buffs. It will not. I think you can actually dispel buffs off of your allies. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that, but it almost looked like you could. I tried to use it, and it seemed like it did, but it won't give me any health or mana off of it. But when there is, really, it is only useful with like Inner Flame or Inner Fire, whatever it's called, the Priest buff. When they get that, you can devour it and get a little bit of mana off of it. Otherwise, in most of the game, it's kind of worthless. It might be good against the Furion, actually. But then you would have to know they have Furion if you're going to take that. I think it may have a longer cooldown than Furion's heal, too. So, HKS came up here to help Ricky in that 2 lane. Oh yeah, here it is. He convinced everyone that Carrion Swarm is really strong. Well, anybody who is really paying attention to that game knows it just wasn't just Carrion Swarm. So, they kind of like shuffled lanes around a little bit. Zilla's down here, teleporting back. I wish we could see the fucking command cards. Chain Death Coil and Chain Holy Light are pretty decent. They used to be absurdly strong way back when Mucky first put them in. They got nerfed a fair bit because they could like fully heal you and instantly kill everything. The multipliers are quite high on those. So it'll be kind of a slower early game. I did take Archimon again because the power budget is distributed between strength and intelligence. I knew people were probably going to be a lot more aggressive about singling me out and taking AoE and stuff like that in this game than they were in the first. So I did want to be a little beefier. You can see that already got Brilliance Aura level 1, it says. So the mana regeneration on that is actually pretty good because the low-level auras were beefed up a little bit. So here's let me pause this for a second because I don't want them to level up. So here's an interesting, both these heroes have the same strength at level 3 and level 4, 25 and 25. So 24. So he has 7 more agility than Ricky, while having 3 less intelligence. Yeah, so I think those are probably all sorted out. I've never looked at the numbers in the editor for this stuff. So Ricky is kind of using Chain Holy Light for more aggressive stuff right now. High Zealot, however, never really runs out of mana. So he's probably using level 1 Carrion Swarm, maybe level 2 or level 3. And just spamming that. But the mana cost early on does not appear to be really that high. It goes up to, I think, about 200, maybe a little more. I'm not sure. So Zilla opted for early items. I'm using Chain Lightning, not that much for wave clear at this moment. If you wanted to take a look at our wave clear, it's if you wanted to just compare me and High Zealot, it's 5 versus 3, not very good. It's actually Zilla has the most, I believe, because of that passive, because that would deal magic damage and ignore armor, and it'll just always kind of be there. So I was confused. I'm gonna tell HKS that the Elder Hawk Rider is making stuff on fire, and that must be a bug. And then I remembered, oh yeah, the elite units that you can spawn, those probably have fairy fire on them. And then I thought, wait, I noticed the ballistas. I noticed that was weird too, and I was like, wait, somebody on their group bought the elite units. They must really hate me. It turns out Zilla just is Zilla. So High Zilla came down here. We are equal level, and I don't have any kill threat on him whatsoever. He's gonna basically sit there and heckle me with a Carrion Swarm constantly. Now I'm not really worried about that though. This really isn't something that worries me, because he doesn't have kill threat on me. If I wanted to, I can run away, and he can't. Until he gets something like Stormbolt, he can't do anything about it. Plus, if he misses with it, I can just sit there slapping him.
Our allied town is being attacked.
But it did feel like his mana regeneration was better. That's because he does have Brilliance Aura. And Chain Lightning was quite expensive. I think I took Impale as my second skill. So I didn't have Brilliance Aura. In fact, I'm not sure if I'll actually get Brilliance Aura in this game. I think I'm mistaking it for the other game in which I got Brilliance Aura.
Our allied town is being attacked.
So Chain Lightning has a channel time to it that I didn't know about until Q told me, and it's very easy to interrupt that, because there's really no other ability like that that works like that. Carrion Swarm doesn't work like that. Shockwave doesn't work like that. It was really confusing why sometimes it just seemed to have no range to it. As a result, I really won't get too much use out of it, and eventually I'm going to unlearn it and exchange it for Carrion Swarm much later in the game. I almost died at this point because I really wasn't paying attention. I should have stayed there for the creeps, but I knew there was a chance somebody could come up with Windwalk, because they do like Windwalk. And Stick died. I do not believe anybody will get Windwalk in actually either of these games, except for Q in the first one. It's definitely very, very stuttery. It's very Warcraft 3. Ricky is dying. You know, things are quite even. Q is, Q's got our highest creep score, actually. So overall, their team is doing a lot better in creep score. A lot better. Zilla's got the highest still. So I can't really do too much when Zilla chases me, but I'm not really too worried about them chasing me at the moment, because they don't really have too much kill threat on me. They can be annoying, but they're kind of wasting their time by chasing me around. And if they get caught by my minions, they'll just have to be forced back, and I just go back to farming. Whenever he uses Carrion Swarm, that's invitation for me to go in. And oh, I did take Brilliance Aura. I guess that was my third. I take Shadow Strike in the first, and I forgot what I took in this game afterwards. I guess I just focused on leveling Chain Lightning. Just once Chain Lightning hits about level 4, you can start using it to try to snipe minions. Once it gets to about level 6, level 7, you can start using it to try to wave clear. It is quite hard on mana, and the reason why I don't like using it earlier is because it loses a lot of damage in its bounces. So it's definitely not as good as a wave clear as Carrion Swarm, or about level 3, level 4 you can start quite aggressively using it. I mean, you can use it early on if you really want to, but I don't know if High Zealot actually levels it initially. He's got level 3 Brilliance Auras, so I think his Carrion Swarm is not amazingly high. So it became clear that he was trying to be very aggressive with it in kind of a similar manner to I was in the first game, I guess. That's the way I saw it. So it's like, okay, all I need is early magic resist. The second I get early magic resist, it's going to take pretty much all of his teeth out. Now, Emu has gone for Stormbolt quite early, so there is Frost Armor from Q. The Frost Armor does add a significant amount of armor, and the slow effect is actually nice to have. Because, for example, it stops Zilla from chasing you. Now, there's a case where I tried to cast Impale and it didn't do anything. So, Chain Lightning, nice poke damage, reasonable cooldown, kind of hard on the mana. I think it has a shorter cooldown than Carrion Swarm, so you can burn your mana more fast with it. I have no idea what the mana cost between the two spells looks like. But at this stage, I didn't really feel that High Zealot was really that oppressive. A little annoying, sure, but if I was up against Bill, it probably would have been very similar. The difference is that High Zealot's creep score should be monstrously higher than mine because he's used it so often, but it really isn't. He's only 4 higher than me at that moment. And he's had complete lane dominance at this stage. But one of the ways that I would deal with a spell like this is to maneuver my way away from the minions, to force High Zealot to choose between either Carrion Swarming me or Carrion Swarming the minions. The worst thing that can happen is you get hit by a chunk of damage and he gets a bunch of creep kills off of it. At this stage in the game, creep kills are more valuable than dealing some damage to the player, because securing kills is pretty difficult. And getting a bunch of gold, however, leads to either minions or working towards any items you may want. And getting those earlier in the game means more impact. In our group, HKS will pool me, and then I will pool Ricky for the first chunk of the game, and then I will start saving my money. Just judging from High Zealot's stream that I watched very briefly to see what their commentary was after the game, it was High Zealot managing a chunk of their upgrades in this game. So Ricky died and HKS almost died. So again, this is still mostly 1v2 down here. Sometimes Ricky coming down here, and now Q is down here. Q has basically no... There's Impale again that did nothing. Q has basically no kill threat unless they stand there and take his Thunderclap. It's pretty much never going to hit anyone. All their team is ranged, except for Stake, who is predominantly still caster-oriented. So at this stage, I have magic resist. I don't even care if I'm like low on mana or whatever, especially since I've got that Frost Armor on. I'm perfectly fine sitting there and attacking him because I'm more confident about my ability to avoid Carrion Swarm. And as you can see, the way I just move further back, he thinks I might come back, he tries to use it. He only hits Q, who basically takes no damage from it. And I'm trying to eat stuff with Devour Magic, and it's not working. I wanted the heals off of it so badly. But I will only discover it only works on enemy buffs, period. So, and there's Impale. I send 2 minions with it. So, the Impale was gimping me more than anything any of the enemies were doing at this stage. And I didn't know what I was doing with it. Not that any of those cases would have really helped me a lot with it, but it wasn't behaving the way I expected it, the way I wanted it to behave with my skill set. I would have been better off taking Stormbolt first, or perhaps Flame Strike. HKS is going to stand here, and then he is going to... oh my god! Oh, he's going to piss on himself. And he can't heal himself with his own pee. And so Zilla will take Silence. Silence does last for a really long time. A really long time. But Silence only silences, so I'm not really going to comment too much about that right now, but it does last an eternity. I have no idea what the cooldown is. I wager he upgrades it quite heavily early into the game. So, Hyzel, on the other hand, is devoting a lot into Brilliance Aura, a lot more than I am. His is level 4, and I believe mine will remain at level 1. No, I did get it to level 3, but I think I won't level it past level 3 for quite a long time into the game, if ever again. Maybe much later on. A duel of the ages. I actually have Stormbolt at this point. It was a burst of lag. Ricky secured the kill. So bottom lane is getting pushed. Nobody can really stop Zilla in bottom. I can nuke him, but it's a waste of mana at this stage. Eventually I'll get to the stage where I do enough damage, but Zilla will wisely get magic resist fairly early into the game, already knowing that I'm gonna go caster. I decided to shoot Zilla, but he took Black Arrow, or Stake rather. But I don't have much kill threat at this moment because I did feel like mana was definitely an issue for me in this game, much more than it was for Hyzilla, who eventually ends up taking Flame Arrows for some physical damage, and even with that, he will very commonly keep most of his mana. I also noticed in his video that he has autocast enabled for the passive on his hero for most of the game, and I think that might be a Dispel Magic, so it's possible that also chews some chunks of his mana every now and then, and it doesn't really affect his mana pool too much. So Stake ended up taking Ice Bolt thing that can stun. There's several stuns in the game. The Ice Bolt is one of them. I will take another one that is a Boulder, and that is an ability I believe to be quite retarded because its range is very high. That said, the stun duration on it is not amazingly high, but it is a very, very long range stun. So Zilla now has Spell Shield. So I don't really possess the ability to kill him at this stage anymore unless he basically asks to die. It becomes abundantly clear at this point that other than Thunderclap off of Q, which requires him to be in a very optimal location, and Ricky, with what amounts to be fairly expensive and short range radius stuff, I may be the only really major wave clear we have at this moment. So I think that Thunderclap has kind of a short cooldown though. Yeah, not too long. So Q can definitely clear waves. That's one of the reasons why he's getting decent creep score, but now I've started to use my spells a little more aggressively. So my creep score is going up. As compared to High Zealot, who is currently at 41, so he's still very slightly ahead of me, but at this stage in the game, that is not a really large advantage. Not really a big deal. As far as kills in the game are concerned, Ricky somehow has the highest kills tied with Emu. Both of them, of course, being offensive casters. With Emu having stun and Ricky having chased some people down and used chain death coil on them. Now, I believe what will happen is Ricky will die and then I will kill Emu in an exchange in the top. Some of these icons, like for example High Zealot, they're nearly invisible, considering that at least what I'm looking at is High Zealot looks practically identical to the Horde in color on the map, and since they fade out for a time when I glance to the minimap, I practically never see him. And yeah. It's easy to miss myself as well, to be honest.
Our allied town is being attacked.
So, our wave clear, however, is kind of shitty because Q has to be really close to wave clear. It's not really wave clear, it's just general AoE, to be honest. But he is very fat. He gives himself plus 18 armor right now with level 2 frost armor and level 10 thorns. So Thorns does flat damage now, I believe. So it's actually fairly okay clearing the waves with minions, but it's not a huge amount. You can see that the Knight is not doing colossal amounts, about 20 health to himself. Not huge. It will add up over time, especially with a lot of units, but you're not going to see it like blitzing down waves very fast. It'd be pretty broken if you could. So with this in mind, our wave clear is in a bad spot. But now you can see the Bolter is much longer range than Stormbolt, and since High Zealot has no spell resist and no way to stop me, I will just run up and kill him. That'll actually happen quite often in the game until later on. Meanwhile, since Steak has Black Arrow, and these are level 10, he's able to clear these camps quite quickly. Warsong battle drums that dropped off of that. So at this stage, I'm going to start using Chain Lightning much more aggressively for wave clearing. I debated if I really want to actually put a lot of effort into this game, because if I really want to put a lot of effort into this game, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to take Mass Teleport, and I'm going to basically try to counter wave clear. But while I will do that, I will just end up being thirsty instead. There will definitely be some pretty bad misplays on my behalf in this, where I won't really be paying attention to where enemies were last seen, or I won't really account for travel time, and I will walk into areas that are in Fog of War that turn out to have like 3 or 4 players in them, and since they all have CC, I will basically never get to do anything. Now, this does not appear to do any damage, but he is peeing on Steak's face. So there is emotional damage. Kind of like how Steak was just Frenched. Ricky now has 4 kills. I have 2, but Bill is also at 4. So Bill and Ricky are tied. Bill, however, although he does have spell damage, it's not AoE. So he's not hyper behind in CS. He's not like HKS levels of behind. But it's not really amazing either. It's mostly because he's kind of got kill threat on people on our team, and he's allowed to farm fairly comfortably at this time. So one thing I noticed is that Ricky will spend an exorbitant amount of money on consumables instead of just buying a regeneration item. Although it is nice to be able to get those consumables, particularly early on, I'll sometimes grab some of those mana vials to fund Chain Lightning or Carrion Swarm if I'm using it. But otherwise, I try to save the gold. Ricky will also get a lot of Wands of Negation at some point. I think Devour Magic and Arcommand actually does work on summons, but I didn't see Steak very often in the game, so I didn't really get to use it that much. Plus it has a super long cooldown, so it's not hyper amazing for that, but it is a little something if you really wanted to kill summons. HKS pees on some orcs. It does seem to have a short cooldown. The healing rate is not amazing, but there aren't many heals in the game, so As we push, I try to conserve my mana a little bit. There is an emu. I know I can easily kill him, but he knows that too, and he's trying to keep his distance. Problem being is I still have Impale at this point. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I have the rock, but it might have been on cooldown. Or I might have just not used it. So this stage, I know that we can't really do too much damage to their base. So I'm going to mostly try to wave clear at this point to make money. And if we can get a kill, that would be nice. But Zilla already has Spell Shield, so... Oh, yeah. And Ricky is silenced for a while. I actually tried to body block Ricky, but... I don't really have mana for this. Of course, he can just chase. And I won't be able to kill him with no mana, so I just poured out. Honestly, I often wonder if you should be able to do that. I generally speaking, I would say no, but since this map is all straight lanes, like, there's no way to get away from anybody who has slight movement speed advantage. And nobody here plays carefully, so... Oh, someone died. It might have been Zilla. Some people died to minions in the most bizarre of ways. Yes, Zilla died to minions. Alright, so grab the surgical mask. That may be the only mana regeneration item I buy in this game. But, it isn't actually a huge boon. It's nice to have, but it's not as much as you would think. Because I think it's base regeneration. It hasn't caused Brilliant Sword to become insane, and mine is only level 4 right now.
We're under attack.
Meanwhile, Ricky died. So, our verdict on Carrion Swarm thus far, inconsequential, actually. High Zealot could have taken any other offensive spell or gone any other build, and I think the game really wouldn't have changed too much at this stage. His wave clear is not as high as mine now. I'm ahead of him. I have 3 kills over him. I mean, you could say it's a player skill issue, but I made no use of an Impale whatsoever. I flailed around a lot and didn't really accomplish too much. And I was very ineffectual for most of the game until now. So I'm not really sure that's really the best comparison. And not only is this really a good comparison for the validity of Carrion Swarm, however. So I would say look at the cost. Oh, this is going to be gross. Yeah, Ricky, they were all bundled up for Ricky's AoE, so Ricky just kind of blew them out. Meanwhile, HKS is peeing on me. So jumpy and laggy. Man, that went from like a mile away. It's okay, the rock also went from a mile away, and I was like, oh, he has Spell Shield. But he has no magic resist, so... I have magic resist and no Spell Shield. At least as far as dealing with the individual players are concerned, I have an advantage on that because Yeah, the spell shield has a really long cooldown, but magic resist, you actually apparently cannot change how much resist that is, nor can you add other resist items. They're always going to be the same amount. I have no mana. I never leveled Brilliance or after 4. And the mask doesn't help amazingly huge amount. Meanwhile, everybody bundling to get pissed on is just asking for Carrion Swarm to hit us over and over again. As HKS sits there tanking their entire base. And he's dead. At this point, I contemplated what to do. I noticed Ricky was coming back because Ricky did take mass teleport. This double. So I just was kind of staying back just so I don't take splash from that. We can see that Honejasi is going through some of his mana now, but you know, he's not doing too badly. I think his Carrion Swarm is very low level now at this stage. It's one of the reasons why he's having a hard time getting creep scores, because his AoE is not very high. Meanwhile, Steak died. Steak got close to low health. I just used Chain Lightning on him. So it seems like we're just gonna stomp them at this point, but you can see we've still got half the game to go. Zilla is still down here. Never mind, Zilla's gone now. So I'm trying to be kind of like proactive, avoiding Carrion Swarm, whereas a lot of people do kind of seem to like walk right into it. Carrion Swarm can be dodged, Chain Lightning can't. It's a point and click. And that's something that should definitely factor into any kind of power budget consideration, is how hard is it actually to use certain spells? Well, Carrion Swarm will not pop Magic Shield, but Chain Lightning will. So one can be dodged, the other can be spell reflected off the shield. So you always have to consider those kinds of things. It's not just about how much mana does it cost, what's the cooldown, how much damage it does, what's the range, etc. It's like, how are the interactions? Well, the interactions is, I need a spell just to be able to deal damage to half of their team now. Because now Honejasi also has a spell shield. I need a spell and I need to spend mana just to get rid of the shield, so that my targeted damage or another stun can actually land. I came down here just to steal HKS's creep gold. Really, no other reason. I just took it from him and that's it. So when you talk about budgets and stuff like that, it's like, well, I am eventually going to get Spell Shield. I'm going to go for the Nubile Emu. It will not help against a chunk of their damage that comes from Carrion Swarm, because Carrion Swarm ignores that. So Carrion Swarm, in that sense, is more powerful than something like Chain Lightning, because if you wanted to Chain Lightning any of these players, you have to first get rid of that Spell Shield. But Chain Lightning, you can hit a minion with it, and it'll bounce. I think it'll bounce even if it gets shielded. So you can actually end up popping 2 shields for it, and it'll open up both of your stuns afterwards, right? This is so dumb. But now we're silenced forever. Ricky never healed me. I don't think Ricky was silenced. Ricky just let me die. Oh. 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 Huh. Oh. Dead. So I'm not sure what Q is doing. Q's got a plan. What's he gonna get? He picks up the head barrel. That gives a bunch of fat and some movement speed. Meanwhile, our bottom lane pushes back. We have a massive upgrade advantage, because I would grab upgrades sometimes. Ricky would grab upgrades. Sometimes I save the gold, but then I thought, they do have strong wave clear. I don't really want to be trapped in our base for too long, because if we start losing buildings, then we're probably just going to flat out lose completely. But Steak started spending money on items and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, we're not gonna be that far behind on creep gold. So you end up having to really balance that with what your enemy is doing, because you can really screw yourself over if they're being really aggressive about creep upgrades, and then you don't take any, and you do not have wave clear to deal with additional creeps in their upgrades. So Q's got Thunderclap quite well leveled now and is able to kill minions more reliably. The cooldown is quite short. Ricky and I are being French over here. I'm not sure who that even came from, that stun. And I was like, huh, I might be fucked. Well, there is a lot of shit. Oh, and I'm gone. Very close, very close. Zilla, I don't think, is aware of the Frenchman's end and hasn't grabbed any of the high-end items. But he will eventually. Meanwhile, I use Ricky to teleport because I have mass teleport now. I still am using Impale, and I think I either ran out of mana or I was on cooldown. But Bill decided to chase, and then Bill died. And yeah, the Carrion Swarm did like nothing to me at all. I was like, oh, okay. He ended up taking the Eggplant, which is a stronger healing salve. It's quite nice. I think he gets good use out of it too. He uses it quite often, I think. I actually specifically had HKS add that item for people like Ricky, but it was mostly High Zealot that's been making use of it from what I've seen. Over time, it definitely is quite nice to have, especially if you have good mana regeneration. So at this stage, because of the magic resist, I can be very fearless. I don't have to worry about High Zealot at all. He does have auto attack damage, so if he ends up fighting me and I'm low on health, then I'm in kind of trouble. Meanwhile, over here, oh!
Our hero has been slain.
I like how it yanks me over there. It's not even player one that's fucking dying. Are the creep spawns working? Respawns? They might be working. Some of them work. I think some of them work and some of them don't. Something is buggered about the arrays for sure. Q has to remind them that they can repair buildings. He's trying to save them from themselves. Zilla has arrived. He has magic resist now. There's really like no way I can kill him. I was hoping the minions would do more, but they don't because he's fat. So I'm fucking out of there. Meanwhile, in top lane, High Zealot really wanted Ricky, but was stuck on minions and couldn't do anything. There we are, I slurped some boners. Fuck off, camera, Jesus Christ. So I think this is a stage where I start being a little more aggressive about clearing the waves and stuff like that. I believe it's fine now. Although there will definitely be some thirst. So, chain lightning has the benefit, and you don't have to really aim it that much. You just have to make sure it has places you can bounce. Some line of sight, I believe. And, well, it's not great for wave clear as good as Carrion Swarm. It's, not terrible either. I have Brilliant Sword at level 5 now, so... I still oftentimes felt like it was really shitty for the investment. Of course, I only have 58 intel, which is not really that high. The stat growth is different between Kaldazad and Archimonde. Looks like Archimonde gets a lot more agility. That's why his stats are higher on strength and intelligence. So some of the stat growths are definitely different. So the game slowed down a lot right now. We're not really seeing a lot of really aggressive stuff. Just some casual pushing back and forth with Silence killing Ricky possibly again. Oh. Oh, he wants him. He wants that French booty. I actually was going to come over there to kill him, but I accidentally canceled it. I could have probably killed the both of them if I did. But I actually misclicked. I was low on mana, so Bell might have escaped, but if Chain Lightning bounced to Zilla, he would have died. So I stayed here. HKS is just peeing on things, letting Thorns deal some damage. It does use quite a bit of mana. Zilla appears. There's so many wards. And they don't stack, so... Pretty sure they don't stack. The Spirit Walker would have insane HP regen if they stacked. I knew I was probably fucked at this point because I was gonna get stunned. There's like nothing I can do. I'm just gonna get fucked. This is a familiar situation. This is one of those cases I really wasn't paying attention to where everybody else on the map was, and we were inside their base, so... HKS also dies. Now, it's 2 for nothing. The enemy team is not really in an amazing position to push with this, but Zilla is going to trap himself in a corner. He's fucked! Oh, God! Oh! Zilla got the shit beaten out of him. So in terms of creep kills, Q still has a lead. He is just basically doing nothing but spamming Thunderclap on minions. So he's got fairly high creep score. Steak has actually exceeded High Zealot by a considerable amount. Bill hasn't really grown that much, and Zilla's grown a little bit. HKS is got 19. He's got 19. So in terms of kills, remember Ricky doesn't even have magic resist. He died. Ricky has 8 kills. I have 7. Emu has 7. Zilla has 2. High Zilla has 3. Steak has 2. And Q has 1. So their kills are a little more evenly distributed as a result of having so many different nukes on their team. Whereas pretty much all of our kills are just stuck on the 2 people with spell nukes that are not melee ranged. So Steak is getting some money though. He is cashing. He's got a new belly, a new cap paw, surgical mask. He's got an assortment of stuff, but he is still mostly boners and other random stuff. So he's not like really dedicated to any specific job at this point. Eventually, I'm going to aim to get level 2 mass teleport, which is ridiculously strong. The teleportation time is reduced. The cooldown is reduced. I'm just running around in minions, letting them deal with Zilla, getting him low. And then I'm silenced and I can't do anything, so... Zealot's not really using Carrion Swarm that aggressively to clear. That's why his creep score is not as high. There you go. That could have been his second cast if we really wanted it to be, but he might be more conscious about his mana at this stage. His Brilliance Aura is maxed out, mine is still level 5. And his mana is already capped again. Yeah, the regen's a lot stronger. He doesn't even have a surgical mask on top of it. He has the same int that I do, though, so... Zilla's doing a dance. Everyone's silenced again. Can't do that. Well, silenced. And HKS dies. So trying to chase me is a dangerous thing because, well, they are very fast, but I can run through minions. Problem is a lot of the minions did not chase. I think what happened is they passed over a region and it gave them the attack command and that was it. So while I was hoping to body block them in the minions, I had to run all the way back down the wave, which meant that Stake was waiting for me along the way. Otherwise, I had gotten Zilla pretty low. He was almost within kill range if I had the mana to deal with him, but the minions didn't behave like I thought they were going to. Ricky took Shockwave, although it seems to be quite low level. Stake has like no health. Oh! Ah! Zilla has no commitment. That's so sad. So me dying there was kind of bad, and HKS dying there was kind of bad because the bottom lane is kind of pushed in, and they're going to reset mid, and top is pushing. So we didn't do enough damage to their base before to really have lasting impact because we didn't kill any spawning buildings. And that means we didn't really put a dent in their gold because they probably got a lot of gold laying around that can facilitate a building repop or two. You really kind of need to drain their gold and then take out buildings. So it's good to take out like 2 or 3 at a time. It will get to the point where I'm not entirely sure if I can actually stop their push. And I believe that's at the stage I'm going to swap out Impale because it's not working out for me. So I try to be a little more cautious at this stage, knowing that we are standing in a position to possibly lose a game. So I'm not really looking to kill here, although that does get High Zilla very low. I don't have the ability to follow that up. There is Impale. It does kind of slow them a little bit. But I got nothing to follow up. I just wanted them to leave, really. If Ricky had Blink, he would have been able to finish off some people there. Ricky's sitting on a lot of money. 4,000 gold.
Our allies' hero has been
And then HKS died. Possibly to Stake up here. HKS is very, very useless on his own. He has some auras and the healing spray, but he can't heal himself. Ricky is French. Whatever.
Our allies' is being attacked.
Ah, there we are. I finally got that nubile emu.
We're under attack.
I ended up taking a blast staff.
Our allied town is being attacked.
And then Ricky got stepped on by an emu. Emus have just been feasting on French bagels this whole game. That is the range on that rock. It's fucking insane. That is definitely too high. I was really surprised by that. Use Carrion Swarm a little early. So, High Zealot actually did take Engineering Upgrade, which is one of the reasons why he moves so fast right now. He also took Avatar, but he blew it really early. He really didn't need to blow it. You really want to save Avatar for when people are going to commit onto you, like if you get jumped by something, or if you're really trying to force people out of a lane. But I was at half health and had no mana, so he blew it really needlessly. I was not going to kill him. I wasn't even going to really directly attack him. I was just really in no position to do so. But now that he burned it, now that I know that he burned it, if I had mana, I definitely could commit to killing him. Because if I had all my shit up, I really could just blow his shield and then nuke him and then chase him. Well, until I realized he had Engineering Upgrade anyways. But at this stage, since I don't have mana and I'm kind of low, I'm just going to sit here and just use Chain Lightning to casually pop the lane. And just slow the push and farm. Now he burned it again, but I'm not really sure if he's just burning it. I don't know. I don't think he's burning it for damage. Because it doesn't seem to increase his damage, or at least it doesn't display that it does. I don't know if he's really thinking I'm gonna like hard engage on him.
Our allied town is being attacked.
But I wasn't going to. That's like the special version of Avatar, the special needs version. Even so, we aren't really in a great spot. I'm starting to heal for an amount. HKS is just getting shot. Not able to really do too much. Meanwhile, this is one of the cases I remember where I walked down, because I saw one person, but there was actually 3 people there. And I thought Ricky was going to assist me, but he was silenced for like 5 years. So that was a really bad death, really clumsy. We're definitely not in a good situation. HKS cannot do anything about this. I'm not... Oh yeah, HKS was trying to use ion shields. And it turns out it's terrible. It does nothing. Well, he had Avatar spell immunity, I believe, but I still think it was just terrible anyways. So we're definitely taking some damage here. Some of the outer defenses are finally starting to go down. There's a lot of coins down there. So what we're observing right here is that Q is good at killing the minions that are in front of our base, which that mid lane has almost always been pushed for a very long time. That's where all his creep score is coming from. But he is not in a position to convert that creep score into really much for himself. He is buying items and he's slowly fattening himself up, but even if he becomes hyper fat, since he doesn't have any real kill potential on their team, that gold is not amounting to more pushing strength. Not until, like, if it gets turned on a Ricky or something like that. I think I storm bolted the wrong thing. I'm pretty sure I storm bolted a minion. And I think Ricky got that kill, actually. Oh yeah, I finally took Carrion Swarm. I was like, I'm under no obligation not to use this if they think it's overpowered. And it definitely isn't. Not really by that much anyways. So I'm gonna use it, and I was not having any success with Impale. Oh. I still don't think his is very upgraded. I'm really wondering why he's not using it more often in that case, but oh, he might use it now. Oh. Oh!
Our hero has been slain.
He fucking runs so fast, just squirming around angrily. HKS is just like slowly plodding after him. Hey, he's teleporting away. Not even gonna bother to wipe his ass with HKS. I think I took the blast staff just for like these cases where somebody might be near me, because I don't have any other offensive damage, but I should have tried to grab more blast staffs if that was the case. I think I actually wanted to grab the head barrels instead to be beefier. Just so that Zilla couldn't like just bull rush me down too easily. HKS died. I think he died over here actually, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes I think like HKS just like falls asleep. There, I bought something. That might have been mass teleport. Yeah, now I have level 2. Oh, Zilla took that, but it was no big deal. I was so far away. Alright, so Zilla ended up getting the balanced axe. So his damage will be actually not amazingly high, but fairly high. You'll probably see his creep score steadily go upwards as a result. He's at a 111. The Stake still has quite an impressive amount of creep score, I have to say. Considering that's probably mostly Black Arrow doing that. Never really would have expected it to be that good. It's not like the stats of the boners are amazingly high. So I think at this stage I start trying to play a little less retardedly. Trying to be a little more cautious about where I'm going, but since there is a lot of CC and some of it has very high range, there's only so much you can do. Oh, those wards disappeared. It takes them so long to kill Q. He has reincarnation! Oh my god. He's just silenced again right away. He just calmly walks away. What a sassy man. I guess Q's plan is just to be really annoying. He has plus 37 armor. What the fuck? It's not even, it's level 6. It can go higher. He's like an unmovable wall. It's like Trump's wall. There's no labyrinth in this game though, so. When he used Avatar, I would just teleport out, and then I believe I would mass teleport somewhere else. Because he didn't have the CC to hold me down. He didn't have the damage to kill me. I couldn't do anything about him. I may as well just would go to another lane and clear that. Sometimes I wouldn't see the gold underneath the fire either. But I literally could just ignore High Zealot. The only person I really couldn't easily ignore was Bill, because he had a lot of direct damage. And if Bill was ever with anybody else, they all had CC at this stage. So I had to be kind of careful about that. I'd usually try to hang out near Ricky that if I could, but that often invited disaster. Ricky is like a magnet for just agony. Like in this case. I try to pour it out, but there's too much damage that time. There's 3 people there, although we did get very close to killing Bill. At this base, I've started figuring maybe it might be better to try to pick people off who are out in the pushing in our base rather than pushing into their base, because anytime I go near their base, they're going to hard focus on me and I'm just going to get CC'd. And there'll be nothing I can do. I considered taking blank, but then I had to exchange the boulder for blank. And I didn't really want to do that. I liked having the extra stun. And I felt without it, I didn't have any kill threat on any member of their team. Meanwhile, HKS was trying out different shit in it. Saffron apparently has shit it can't use. I have no idea where HKS is going. I think he went to check the minions to see if they respawn. They did respawn. But to pay for this information, he will die. High Zealot will kill Saffron because Saffron does 81 damage. Wish we could see how much money they gave High Zealot. It was probably a substantial amount. So we did stop them from pushing in our base. Keo is like a janitor that just runs around just sweeping things in his janitor thing. Although I have kept up with him in CS, we have put some distance between ourselves and the enemy team at this stage. Which is impressive considering that we are still pushing into them every now and then. And I believe High Zealot will reach a point where, oh, what am I doing here? I'm being...
Our allies' hero has been slain.
I think I miscalculated my cooldown on mass teleport, and I thought I'd just be able to teleport out. Oh, maybe I just forgot to use my teleporter. I don't know. I had a plan for that, and it didn't work out. I like forgot what to do after killing Bill, when the answer would have been to teleport out. It's also possible I just forgot that High Zealot had Avatar, too. For some reason, I'll just forget that. But still, it was worth. HKS will try another ability now. I think HKS will end up taking mass teleport at some point. Meanwhile, Zilla's looking at the mystery bagel, but it's not a passive because I think that doesn't work very well on non-unit. I don't know. There was some reason HKS couldn't make it a passive. Oh shit! Ricky figured out those items exist. I'm so happy for Ricky. Oh. No. What an asshole. The chase is on. Ricky wants steak. HKSP is on cue. Yeah, some of the minions are respawning. Some of the creeps are respawning, but...
Our allied town is being...
Some of them are not. This stage, I'll tell HKS to put towers in corners. In case there's another incident like with Steak, where they're running down the lane with no health, and I can just teleport to that instead. There was a few times I wanted to be able to teleport behind people, but I wasn't able to because we didn't have any minions over there. Then I remembered, oh yeah, we have towers. With the middle lane, you can't really do that, but the bottom lane and the top lane, you definitely can. Meanwhile, Zilla and Q can slap each other, and it'll take forever for anybody to die, so Q just ignores Zilla, I guess. Point in case. Nobody's fucking dying until I came up and finally killed Zilla. It took that long to finally murder him. He had to be inside of a base with 3 people attacking him. See, the problem was he tried to scale Q's wall. That was his critical mistake. Looks like Steak has some peasants. The Steak may be planning something. What could Steak be planning? Once again, I'm inside their base. I don't think my carrion swarm was very high, but there's like 4 people there and only me. I tried to teleport out, but it was too late. That was another case, again, where I didn't realize that literally everybody was back in their base because I didn't pay attention to the minimap. I used to have better minimap awareness than that. In League, I did a lot better than that, but for some reason, in Warcraft 3, I just kind of ignore the minimap. Possibly because at a glance, it's kind of hard to really tell what's going on, and I usually only just glance at it, just to check the waves. Unless it's a piss color like Steak, it's very easy to miss like the purple, and even the blue is kind of dark on the map. And like, even like Q, the green, when it's faded out, it can be easy to miss that at a glance, especially if he's on another green portion of the map. Check our scores again. So Bill's kill streaks have sort of slowed down. He's climbed up to 10, but both Ricky and I have climbed up to 12. However, nobody else in our team have scored any new kills. So HK is kind of like peas on people, and Q makes money. Whereas High Zealot has climbed up to 8 kills, particularly because of his ability to chase. And I might die here as well. Yes. They were all bundled up. There was I remember this. These 3 always stuck together at this stage. And that was not something that was very common in this game. So I really didn't expect to see all 3 of them there again. I really was not paying attention at this point in the game. And that definitely had the potential to throw because, again, only Ricky and I are getting kills, and you're going to kind of see why here. It takes forever to kill Q, especially with Ricky healing him, but he can't do anything besides Thunderclap. So, while he did force them away, he couldn't kill any of them. 37 armor. And he probably still has Reincarnate. So they try to come back. So Q's gonna start chasing them again. Q doesn't even have the spell shield. Oh, he might die. He does have magic resist. Easy clap. Never broke a sweat. So I came down the bottom, killed Zilla again. Stole gold from Ricky. They were still in mid. At this stage, I just let Q go forward, especially since I just ran back, grabbed only a little bit of mana. And it's like, yeah, Avatar is out. I guess I'll just do nothing. I didn't have any mana anyways. Meanwhile, Q is just still slapping. TGS did stick a tower back there, but most of the action was happening in mid at this point. So I'm gonna start teleporting around, nuking the waves, basically blowing all my mana as fast as possible. I should have been looking to buy health items at this point. There we are. See that the special did give me some mana. It's funny, we have a few interactions here where many of the players just don't want to actually deal with each other. They'll just leave because it would take too long. Oh yeah, there was some peasants over here. And I was like, wait, how do I get over there? I never saw the Zeppelin. So I'm gonna actually go back there. And find nothing over there. Now, I knew that tower was there, and I saw this group here, but I didn't really want to fight that group. So Ricky's down here. I went down here to follow Ricky. Oh, missed. That was a really easy one to hit, too. Ricky was telegraphing where he was going. Oh, but Ricky killed himself anyways. And I didn't want to have a repeat of before. I was tired of dying in this. So, just go to a different lane. Just try to put pressure on their base. I see Emu down here is quite low. So I killed him. That's pretty devastating, actually. Zilla died over there. And actually, High Zealot's going to come down here, but he's kind of low. And he ends up pinning himself over here, and I saw that he was low. And I figured he'd pour it out. But he died before I got a chance to kill him, so... yeah, they're fucked. That's it. So even though Ricky died and I was forced to run out back there, the fact they were so low and then tried to hold that wave on top of it. And plus Bill getting caught, he wasn't able to do anything about that teleport. And this is gonna just fuck them over because of all the auras on the bottom. And HK starts building towers. I guess there's Thorns, but there is War Drums. The Thorns and the healing, I guess. HKS usually takes the other auras, but he didn't this time. And we're pushing them on top too, so if we got pushed out of middle, I could just go to top. I contemplated doing that, but I thought, nah, taking these towers is probably better because their creep score is not escalating high enough to deal with the gold deficit of losing a whole bunch of towers, even if it's just in one spot. Usually people will camp that spot, but they weren't really in a position to do that. But HKS is gonna die. And Q appears. Is chasing Bill. And he's gonna get stuck. No, Zilla might die for this. And Q is fat, and they're really tunneling onto him. He doesn't do anything. Oh, but Ricky died somewhere. Oh, Q might die. He got too greedy. He died. Oh, but now he's back up again. I never actually saw Q there reviving. I did not realize he had reincarnate. No! So, Q, I managed to get up to 418 creep score. And I was at 332. Ricky was at 268. High Zealot was still below stake at the end of the game. Okay. Sure thing, question mark. So the hero kills still were greatly in the favor of Ricky and myself, with Bill never getting another kill. Afterwards, Q got one more. He doubled his kills. High Zealots had at 9 and the stake had 6 and Zilla had 5. So, watching that game now, I kind of understand more what happened. So, High Zealot really didn't push for wave clear. He took Carrion Swarm early on, and then he leveled up Brilliance Aura early on, but he never committed to it. He didn't commit very hard to the wave clear dream. So, in my experience, from when I've used Hearing Arrows, is it's not very good. Because I think heroes already take reduced damage from it. And then when you get the, because I'm pretty sure it's magic damage. It's not like it ignores armor or magic resist. I'm pretty sure heroes just take like 25% reduced damage from it. And then you take the, I might be wrong, especially if TGS changed that. But you take the Ruin Braces, I'm pretty sure that reduces it even more. It never really feels like it does hardly any damage. He had a bonus of 60 base damage, right? And it just didn't really feel like he was ever a threat to me after I picked up Rune Bracers. Like, when he takes Avatar, I can't do anything to him, so obviously if I stand and fight him, I will die. But I could otherwise just choose to ignore him if it's just him. So at that point, what I should have done is just focus on wave clearing and not go near their bait. Kind of like what Q is doing. Q is so high in units because he didn't really bother to chase too much. So the slow and methodical approach worked. It's probably one of the reasons why we didn't really lose too much footing, even when I died a whole bunch of times. We never really had much kill threat on them without me and Ricky there. But since Q never died and can kill the minions, they weren't able to get in our base because the only people on their team that really had a lot of push strength was Stake with boners, and he had to have the boners up, and High Zealot with Carrion Swarm. Now, he didn't level his Carrion Swarm very aggressively, for sure. After the early stage, it seemed like he only put a point to it maybe every now and then. But that means that the mana cost is lower too, so he could just use it more often. But I think he kind of wanted to save his mana for the stun, for Avatar, and then for Hearing Arrows. The problem is that the only parts of those that really work well together is going to be like the Avatar and then the Hearing Arrows. Because he had engineering upgrade too, it's where some of that base damage came from. So while he can move around and be kind of annoying, His kill threat was not really that high. Now, when we look at the creep scores, he is still one of the highest, right? He's not that far behind me. But I was abstaining from using Chain Lightning too much until middle and late, and Chain Lightning definitely isn't that good. Now, I did take Carrion Swarm towards the end, but it was at the very end, really. And there was a lot more kill threat on their team for me than there was on our team for him. So as far as like the interactions of going into the lane and actually clearing the minions are concerned, I had to be a lot more worried about that than they did. That said, all things considered, the creep score was so even that if you went to look at those two performances, for whatever reason, our creep scores were very even, and he had Carrion Swarm for the whole game and I didn't. So is Carrion Swarm overwhelmingly powerful in terms of creep score? I think it is the best creep score spell in the game. It is definitely the best AoE in the game. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, the AoE on it is larger than it looks. Do not look at the visual for Carrion Swarm and think that that represents the AoE. It has a larger hitbox in the front of it than it looks like it does. So you can get clipped by it when you don't think you should. Second of all, it travels quite fast. So missing Ricky when he's running in one direction is really just, that's you shooting it on a queued attack and not realigning it when you see him moving. So you can definitely play against it because it moves. But there's a lot of missed Carrion Swarms that shouldn't really miss. Like you could just predict the movement and you will hit with them. But it is possible to counterplay it, especially early on, by just keeping your distance and making people choose between killing minions and then hitting you. But that is a little harder in TGS just because the lanes are long and narrow. There's not many places in the lanes where you really realistically can do that without putting yourself in danger by moving upwards more. There's not like jungle parts you can move in except for really specific points. And there's cases where if you move into them, you're just going to die, because you will have no way to leave those places except back through the enemy lane or the enemy that's chasing you. So I think that Carrion Swarm is one of those spells where it is possibly a little too strong, but making big sweeping changes to it's not really the goal. I would look at the mana costs between Carrion Swarm and Chain Lightning. If Chain Lightning is a higher mana cost, I would not buff Chain Lightning. I would raise Carrion Swarm's mana cost either by 5 or 10 per level, depending on where it is. If you can adjust the movement speed for Carrion Swarm, I would reduce the movement speed very slightly. I would not touch too much else with it at the moment, beyond that. Because it's a tenuous thing. Without Carrion Swarm, some games I would find to be unwinnable. And this is not because of a map balance thing. This is because of a player balance thing. Where oftentimes it feels like on my team, if I do not take up the act of trying to be wave clear and hero damage, which Carrion Swarm serves both, along with Chain Lightning, then I feel like I will lose. Because we will lose a slow, gradual death. No, there's, again, a lot of reasons for that, and it's not just, it's because you need this really strong spell, and maybe there's a player skill issue involved. No, it's also because physical damage is still not really that great early on, and I don't know of a good way to really balance that. Not without making, again, large sweeping changes to the map that require a lot of work, and even the creep spawning systems turn out to be more work than we expected. So that said, this game felt very balanced. It felt quite solid. I made a lot of mistakes. People on their team made mistakes. Both teams had different kinds of builds and different kinds of things. Their team was very CC heavy, and we had 2 people on our team that were melee, and that were kind of there more like to sustain, delay, or slow push. And then we both had people that had mobility and stuff like that. So there were more diverse builds it was a reasonable game in terms of the hero compositions and stuff like that. But I think that you could look at some of the heroes. You could either add heroes or adjust existing heroes. I feel like more agility heroes could be added, especially ranged ones that are more agility oriented on their power budget. There may have been with Mucky a discussion about this in the past because of tome stacking, that agility oriented heroes with agility biased power budgets were too strong, because by the time you started buying tomes, you already had a very high bias on this. I'm not sure if a conversation like that had happened with Mucky when the stats were changed or adjusted or looked at on heroes, but I feel like realistically it might have been, and that may have been one of the reasons why we do not see a 25 agility and then a heavy bias to agility on certain ranged heroes. But I feel like so long as you do not nerf ranged spells into the game too much, that you most certainly can find a balance with an agility biased hero now that agility no longer gives you such a huge bias to armor, and that tomes no longer exist and allow agility heroes or casters to stack health so much. Now you actually have to invest an inventory slot into it if you wanted to. And I did want to in this game, I just never really got around to it. The game ended up ending a lot sooner than expected. So, I most certainly am up for adding. There's hero models we can add to the map if we want to, or we can use existing hero models or whatever we want. More heroes could be added, and some diversity between the existing heroes could be made as well. Like the two Illidan's, I was looking at their stats. You could look at their stat growth and their base stats and see if they're actually different or not. Because I think that trying to play a melee agility hero in this would be really, really, really difficult. Really, really, really difficult, because then you're squishy on top of having very little early game presence. So with stuff like Carrion Swarm and the mana costs, the way I look at Carrion Swarm, and the way I've mentioned this, I think almost every single time we've casted this, is what makes spells like Carrion Swarm, Chain Lightning very strong. Evidently, when it comes to late game in this map, in this match, I could not fight Zilla. I could not fight High Zealot. And I had maybe like 50-50 chance against Bill, depending on circumstances. If I jumped Bill, I could kill him. If Bill caught me with anybody else nearby on his team, if there was a second stun, I probably couldn't do anything. Or I might trade. That's because of CC, hard CC. So even though I took Carrion Swarm later on, and Hazel had Carrion Swarm for the whole game, in neither cases, even though I was a subject of a lot of early poke from Carrion Swarm, and the enemy team had to deal with Carrion Swarm, in neither cases did I feel like Carrion Swarm was really that big of a shift in the game. That could not have been obtained with, let's say Shockwave, let's say Flame Strike, Fork Lightning, something like that. What makes Carrion Swarm better than those is more units get hit with it. And I think, I have a hypothesis that the early game mana cost is not that high on it versus Chain Lightning. I may be wrong. I need to look at those. But it feels like the bigger bang for your buck is going to be Carrion Swarm because it hits more units. It's less reliable than Chain Lightning for hitting heroes if they're actually paying attention. So Carrion Swarm is very easy to read, and a lot of the times people telegraph when they're going to use it. When somebody is beelining through the wave and running up to you, you know they're going to cast something. And if you know what their skills are, like especially early game, when you start with Carrion Swarm, it's very easy to then, of course, make the decision between get the creep score or deal some damage to me. Early on, Carrion Swarm's damage is very pitiful, but can be used for securing last hits. And if one of the teams ends up taking early spellcasters, Carrion Swarm is very great for getting early kills on them because they have such low base health. When you hit about mid and late game, Carrion Swarm will deal a lot of damage all the way up until the point you get Ruined Bracers. Then what becomes a problem is Carrion Swarm can become mana hungry, and the cooldown can actually be very prohibitive if enemies have a lot of CC, where you might deal half of somebody's health and damage, but then you might get CC'd and die to a bunch of Storm Bolts or something afterwards. So its impact and the advantages it has become less and less of a thing for killing players. But it does do a lot of damage, right? And it hits damage in a wide radius. But so does Chain Lightning also hits a lot too. And Chain Lightning is a point and click. So is Chain Lightning also overpowered? No. To me, the spell casting in this game is in a position where if you want to consider what is overpowered comparatively speaking to each other, when you look at the broader picture, what you end up doing rather than exposing whether or not a spell is overpowered or not, and I do believe that Carrion Swarm is a little too strong, and maybe Chain Lightning might also be a little bit too strong. When I look at these two, what really gets me about the spells in this is just the reliance on CC. So obviously, what makes Carrion Swarm more powerful is having a guaranteed hit on a unit. If somebody is able to avoid it, or is being able to read your attacks and you're having a hard time landing it, you just hit them with CC and they can't do fucking anything. Or if somebody's coming up, casting Carrion Swarm and then running away and you're having a hard time dealing with the poke, what do? You CC them so you can keep them in one spot. If there is a physical damage that is causing you headaches, even though you have spell damage because they have health or spell resist, like Zilla, what do? You CC them. And then you can just run away or whatever. There are two really specific interactions I hate in this map, but I honestly don't know how to deal with without redoing the whole fucking thing. And they're just a byproduct of the way the map in Warcraft 3 works. The first is town portaling out of being attacked. That to me is one of the dumbest things ever. But if you try to force more people to safe play in this map, what's going to happen? The maps are going to drag out. A lot of deaths are going to feel really stupid and unavoidable. We're going to enter discussions about attack speeds, move speeds, so on and so forth. Like, oh, a minion attacked me. Now it canceled my town portal or something like that. And then the other thing I really hate about this map is CC is just annoying as hell. But that's like with all games. I think that CC, especially point and click CC, is really stupid. The boulder is really dumb in this because the cast range on it feels like it's minimum of like twice as much as Stormbolt. The stun doesn't last as long as an upgraded Stormbolt, but you can just chain the two of them together. You saw them in this match. It's really broken. I could hit Bill from like halfway across a fucking parsector, and Zilla would use it against me from halfway across a parsector. Therefore, if anybody else was even remotely nearby and my shield was down, there was nothing I could do for a full fucking 30 seconds. Other than just get stunned and die. So unless you took blink and somehow there's a period of non-stun that you can blink out, you are going to die. And yeah, CC is one of those things that it's like, okay, League of Legends put in, I believe, diminishing returns or something like that. But actually, I'm not sure. Did League of Legends have diminishing returns? I can't remember, but in League of Legends, you get stunned, half a second can pass, you're dead. Right? Like, you could be the most fed ADC in the game, and half the tanks in the game still have the capacity to instantly kill you. All you have to do is just move slightly too far forward, slightly too far in that direction, as CC goes off, you're fucking dead. And the whole 50-minute game ends. It's one of the most infuriating things is to be in slightly out of position, suddenly you're stunned, and that's just it. It is out of your hands to do anything. That's one of the things that leads to such high levels of toxicity and frustration in games like League, is just how the various slightest mistakes, something you may not even be aware of a mistake at the time, just because you just weren't paying attention, or because people didn't communicate, like, oh, mid's missing, but he didn't tell me mid's missing. Suddenly I'm charmed or stunned and I'm just fucking dead. And they just came out of the fog of war, or they blinked over a cliff or something, and that's it. Like, you didn't even know until it had already happened. You're already dead. Right? The only solution to not have that is just never be in the lane. Well, we are not looking at the skill levels in this game where people are communicating each other's positions all the time. Right? Like, and then there's dumb shit like I do where I see one person, I walk forward, suddenly there's 3 or 4 fucking people there. No matter what I do at that point, I'm dead. Every single one of them has a stun. Right? And it can also be that I try to move away from them. I get stuck on a minion, or like the worst is the sheeps. Because the sorceresses will sheep a Turin or something, and he's still fat as fuck. Now he's moving slowly in this direction. You'll get hooked on him. And if you're not specifically paying attention to microing your hero at that point, that slight little bit of delay from getting hooked on the sheep, because the pathfinding doesn't try to go around it, you're dead. Just like that. You could be full to dead just because there was a sheep in your way that you may not even see because the sheep is so small and 3D is so great and readable, it might be stuck behind your hero model and you don't see him. So this, when you start talking about all these interactions like the CC, burst damage, being able to navigate around stuff, now you got to talk about how do you navigate around 30, 40 minions who are fuck huge and block the player in a pathing system as bad as Blizzard's. Now you got to talk about, okay, so, if I make Carrion Swarm travel more slowly, I don't know if you can even do that, but if you do, then maybe it becomes too easy to move. Then you lose a spell in the game that's used for hero damage versus heroes as a spellcaster. You're going to shift the whole balance of the game from all offensive spellcasters that make use of this spell to deal with somebody who is a tank, like Zilla, or range physical damage, like High Zealot or whatever. I don't like Avatar either. I think that straight up spell immunity is really fucking dumb. And if I could, I would change it to just spell resistance, right? So, this... You got to look at the whole equation. You unit test stuff, you compare them, but then you got to look at what the whole equation is. One small change, like reducing the speed of Carrion Swarm by 20%, let's say, that has huge ramifications in the long run. And you really have to consider it, right? But I do feel like Carrion Swarm is a little too strong. It's a little too strong. In this specific match, I feel like any imbalances as a result of Carrion Swarm or Chain Lightning didn't really impact the game too much because we had two people making use of Carrion Swarm, one on either team. That's balanced in its own fashion. And those spells were not causing such tremendous swings on their use. Like I said, this is the second game of 2. So the first game is where this discussion, this observation comes from. But we talked about Carrion Swarm a lot throughout these videos because we talk about the discrepancy of early game versus casters and physical damage. And what makes Carrion Swarm so attractive is it gives you money, right? It's giving you money by clearing the waves. And especially early on, if you're in, say, High Zealot shoes in this game where he went for early Brilliance Aura levels, and his mana was really not suffering too much, you can spam a low-level Carrion Swarm just to kill those casters, just to kill wounded waves, to push, and you'll get money out of it. So it will produce an extra budget by extent of giving you gold budget, which then can turn into more lumber, level up your skills faster and turn into creeps, whatever you want to use gold for. It can be used for all kinds of shit. So with a physical damage dealer, if you went critical strike first, you're relying on RNG, you're relying on physical damage that's getting heavily reduced by everything around it. The list goes on, right? So that's a discrepancy that I think you have to address before really getting into the whole thick of trying to min-max the balance between these spells. And I think that people who thought that maybe Carrion Swarm is way too strong, way overpowered, because of their experiences in the first game, my cast will go through that because, like I said, there's a lot of different factors why it became oppressive in that game. And they're all absolutely fucking hysterical. So, this is a subject we could tackle in the future, but it's I would like to know the numbers for those spells. Maybe I'll have HKS look at them or something, and maybe we'll change it just a little bit. This is with this stuff, these balances. This is where we gotta do small changes, right? You don't want to be like Blizzard. You don't want to be like Riot. These companies, they don't know how to balance fuck all. There's a reason why Riot is just making excuses. They're basically fighting straw men. And they've been fighting straw men with League of Legends ever since its inception. Relic is the same way. You see these massive balance patches. We reworked this hero, we reworked that hero, we rebalanced all this pages and pages and pages. We have like Dawn of War where all the units in the game got changed. StarCraft 2, all the units in the game got changed. And then you look at Brood War, which, while it's most certainly not perfectly balanced, it's seen so few changes, and it's still the most well-balanced RTS in existence. It's seen, unparalleled professional play in that genre. And it received very, very little balancing, especially for much of its professional lifespan. And there's, then we have all these companies that just make massive changes all across the board. And I do think massive changes are needed in this map, but if we're going to talk in the context of Carrion Swarm, this kind of interaction is when we don't take subtle changes. You want to make subtle changes. Unless someone's prepared to rework everything in this map, which honestly, it's not worth it. Again, you're better off building something in Unreal 4. And, I will say, if I had any control over my life, if I had some experience building multiplayer stuff in Unreal 4, because the way I'm using stuff, I couldn't do it. If I had all the assets on hand, I do have assets. I could port stuff if I really wanted to. If I had all the game systems on hand, I probably could make Lowlands of Legend in Unreal 4 within... You could have a fairly bells and whistles complete version within, 2-3 months. If I wasn't, bottlenecked on D&D stuff. And I mean like graphics, audio, voice acting, everything. Like it really wouldn't be too much work because HKS already has in systems in Unreal for menu, connecting over the internet and stuff like that. I think there's some issues as a result of the complex multi-map nature of the D&D stuff that he was working on. But I think something like TGS. That would be functional and fine to do in Unreal 4. Even with a different control system. Like I would think more like Smites or Paragon, right? Like third person. But, in the scope of TGS like this, to really make everything feel perfectly balanced, you would want changes that nobody's really willing to do, especially in Warcraft 3. So I think when it comes to balancing the individual spells, taking it more slowly, adjusting things. So let's say that Carrion Swarm starts at 75, ends at 210. I would say make it end at 250 and start at 95, 90, right? Maybe 85, right? So, and then if you can change the movement speed, if it's moving at say 900, set it to 800. So small changes. When Blizzard looks at this stuff, you see them just fuck around and change like everything massive. They'll redesign whole things that didn't need to be redesigned. They basically will create problems and then try to solve those problems rather than trying to address the original problem. And if the original problem in this case is that Carrion Swarm does too much damage, you might say just reduce the damage. And you can do that too if you really wanted to, but I think the damage is less of an issue. But if it is an issue, if you look at the stats and they feel balanced and you think it is an issue, and let's say the damage starts at 95 and ends at 500, then I would say start the damage at 80 and end at, 425, 400, right? But even to shave a fifth of the damage off that's a huge change. So those, I think, need small adjustments. A lot of the other stuff in the map, I feel pretty happy about, actually. The mana restoration rate feels a little more comfortable now. Early aura levels feel more impactful. I don't know about Thorns or stuff like that. I'm looking at the Thorns performance in this, and I'm often thinking, is it really there? But it's kind of like invisible damage. There's not really like a really big read for it. So you kind of, you gotta be careful with Thorns, especially, that's why it's flat now. So it's more useful for like pushing the minion waves. HKS would know more about how good it is at this stage. Q is trying weird things and it seems to be working out. So, I'm pretty content about that stuff. The creeps, when they're fixed, could be interesting. I think looking beyond Carrion Swarm, again, we could look at the heroes themselves. Maybe their innate abilities at some point, things like that. Just little small changes you just kind of work up. And overall, this is a match I was really happy about. We look past like the play and the Carrion Swarm and stuff like that. We look at the actual match balance. It felt pretty well balanced to me, right? It felt pretty solid. Everybody had some kind of an impact. Everybody had some kind of contribution. nobody felt completely useless. If anybody felt really useless, it would have been like HKS, just because what he does isn't really telegraphed. He heals and sustains the waves, and he's pushing it with like Carrion Swarm or Thorns, really. And it's like you don't really see him doing too much besides standing there and dying, because some of it's kind of like passive, right? But the healing is a big deal. So, you know, it just worked out. To me, it felt pretty solid. So I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, a lot of work has been put into this map over the years. We had Q in the map, Mucky, and maybe one or two others, and then HKS now, and the map has gone through a lot of different meta phases. I remember when Arcan, I think it was Arcan, first introduced the whole Berserk Windwalk thing, and it was just absolutely bonkers how busted it was. And then Caster didn't scale that well because of the tombs. And then the spells got upgraded. And now we're kind of like seeing casters have dominated this map for so long, because until you built tombs, caster damage was just that much better than everything. Now we've taken rid of tombs, we've rebalanced and adjusted a lot of things. And I think we're starting to sort of see, you know, expose some of those underlying interactions that we can kind of adjust, where there's still most certainly a big shift between casters and physicals, but physicals in this map do become quite relevant in the mid and late game. We can see with Zilla, where once he gets magic resist with that, you know, specific setup he has, there's not much I could do with him as a pure caster, right? So, but things like Avatar just straight up making you spell immune is an interaction that I think is very bad. I think that's something that should be most certainly avoided. But I believe spell immunity is hard-coded into Avatar. So you enter this stage where it's like, I guess you can make a custom ability through triggers, and then you gotta deal with a whole bunch of undocumented behavior, effectively. Warcraft 3 just doesn't behave very well with a lot of things. So I know I rambled on a lot. It's a 2-hour video. I'll cut it here. I won't go on any longer. We'll whenever I get the other video, I'll cast that, because that's kind of a funny video and kind of shows you how fucked this map can really get if people do a few wrong things. So it's it is what it is. That's my thoughts on the matter.